Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacy Scott, and I'm here with Graham Wickham, President and CEO of Wickham Financial and Insurance Services, and we're back with you today with our weekly wrap-up. Graham, what's been going on in the market?
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. We saw a bit of a struggle with equities last week. They finished 2023 so strong, not surprising to see a bit of volatility, maybe a bit of a give back from the 2023 performance. We also saw interest rates rise a bit, where they fell so much coming into the end of the year last year. So we saw the S&P off about 1.5%, the Nasdaq Russell off about 3%, and we saw that rotation we've been talking about. We saw the last part of last year. So the winners, or the haves, if you might, like technology and consumer discretionary, they dropped about 4 and 3%. While we saw the have-nots, or the laggards from last year, really the leaders, healthcare, energy, utilities, gain anywhere from about 1 to 2%. And then we also saw crude oil jump about 3.5%. On some economic news, we did see some manufacturing remain in contraction. If we saw the ISM survey, it also showed a continued decline in prices paid. So if we looked at the ISM services, the PMI fell a bit unexpectedly from about 52.7 to about 50.5. We did see employment shrink, so possibly good that maybe the Fed doesn't have to, or the Fed can have the opportunity to lower interest rates. We saw the U.S. manufacturing orders did surprise a bit in December. If we go overseas, inflation with Germany and the Eurozone, that unexpectedly, and I think it was anticipated, ticked up a little bit. If we go over to China, we saw their PMI survey. Now, that was above their boom and bust 50 mark. And if we look at services activity, that expanded at the fastest rate in 5 months in December. So we really saw the factory business, that area, really show some pretty good gains over there. Now, if we kind of set last week aside and we're kind of looking at the rest of this week, kind of what do we expect? Well, we're expecting some inflation numbers coming out. We're going to see some economic figures coming out on the US CPI. That's going to be released on Thursday. We have the PPI coming out on Friday. So keep in mind that if we're looking at core inflation at about 4, we really want to see that at or below really start to continue to tick down, because the Fed's mandate is 2%. So again, we need this to continually to fall. We do have some Treasury auction coming up for the 30 and 10 years, so we'll see what the market's appetite on that will be. We'll also be looking at some other U.S. data in terms of consumer credit numbers, small business sentiment. And last but not least, we're going to be starting our fourth quarter earnings kickoff this Friday. And they usually kick off with the major money centers like JP Morgan and Bank of America and Wells Fargo. And I think that's going to really set the tone on what the rest of the week would look like in terms of that afternoon, not to mention the next week. And I think the rest of January, what the earnings season could look like and how the market can manage through it.
Okay. Well, Graham, do you think that the market is still, due for a sell-off or a pullback?
Well, I think you could always have that, right? And I think in a period where the market rallied so much, right, in 2023, and it's very concentrated at really the 3 quarters of the year, concentrated in a couple sectors, so on and so forth, in a very small group of stocks. And then it started really broadening out with bonds towards the end of the year. It ended really strong. So I think we have to expect to give back a little bit. Maybe we borrowed a little bit from 24, but I think this could be a pause that refreshes. Because if everything else comes into place, no recession, so on and so forth, we'll talk about this a lot more in our call tomorrow. We are expecting a good market in 24. So expect a pause that refreshes so we can set ourselves up for hopefully a solid, but maybe not as good of a 24.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that information, Graham. And as Graham mentioned, we do have our monthly Lunch and Learn webinar scheduled for tomorrow. And so we would love it if you could join us for that. And you can find the information on that in an email and also on social media and our website. And also one more reminder, we have our first retirement planning today seminar of the year coming up at the end of this month. So if you or someone you know is at or near retirement age, this is something that you're not going to want to miss. So contact us and we'll be happy to provide you with more details. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today, and we will see you on the next weekly wrap up. Take care.
Take care.